Today's drywall video is just finishing. The customer already hung this drywall. I don't prefer to hang sheets upright like this. I like to hang them perpendicular to the joints, so the recesses and butt joints are just easier to work with, I find. This job paid $780, took about 10 hours to complete. So after material, that was about $70 an hour. This is a little low for me, but still 70 an hour is still fantastic. So the very first step, and I've said it on every single video, is we're going to do prep for pre-fill. So I have a nice sharp blade with me. I change it plenty of times to keep that blade nice and sharp. And I'm just going around to all the weirdness, all the ruffled paper, and I'm cutting those off so everything is perfectly smooth. This job also had quite a bit of screws sticking out, so you'll see my screw gun when the light comes up that I had to kind of deepen the screws a little bit, kind of throughout the entire job. I'm working on pre-fill now. I also hit these screw heads while I do pre-fill. But basically pre-fill, and I describe it in every single video, pre-fill, if there's any large gaps or openings, you put mud in there so it fills the hole or the gap. This is huge for crack prevention. Basically what happens if I were to tape over a gap, even if it were small, there would be an air pocket behind the tape. And over time, it possibly could crack. With pre-fill, there is no air pocket, so it can't crack. When doing pre-fill, you kind of shove it really tightly into these cracks, and you wipe it really tight. You don't want any excess mud on the walls. You just want it only in the crack, so wipe it very tight. For pre-fill, tape layer, and first and even second coat, I like to use all-purpose mud. It's from Home Depot. It's a little bit more sticky, a little bit more dries, a little bit more hard, and that just gives a stronger foundation. Then after that, I use topping coat to finish. We're starting our tape layer now. I use a banjo for taping. You can buy these, I think maybe they're $80 at Home Depot. It basically puts a thin layer of mud on the tape as you pull it out of the unit. So it just makes it a little easier. Always start with your butt joints first, which I didn't talk about in this video because I don't really care, but he did his butt joints not really the correct way. See how they're all lined up and together? They're that short perpendicular on the ceiling. Butt joints should be staggered. I describe it over in detail in other videos. I encourage you to watch that. When wiping tape, you kind of want to start in the middle of whatever piece of tape you had and then go in kind of opposite directions. If you start on one end and wipe, it'll wrinkle and kind of tear up a little bit. So it's just best to start kind of in the middle of it. With tape, this is what your tape layer should look like. Extremely, extremely flat, if not indented inside. I have seen too many situations where the tape layer looks huge globs. This is just extremely flat. Here's that butt joint weird thing. But yeah, this is how your tape layer should look. I moved on to the other areas and patches, so there was about 2 hours of downtime before I came back to this job. But before you do inside corners, you want to give the flat tape minimum 1 hour to dry. Because when you use your tools, whether it's these tools I have here or hand tools, you'll tear up your flat tape, and you just don't want that. So if it has just a little bit of time to dry, it won't happen that way. When doing inside corners, you want to give a little extra attention on the each corner, so where all the walls meet, and just really spread and make those joints look really nice. If you do enough of these drywall jobs, you'll end up buying these specialty tools, if you can see them on the left there. Basically, the one on the right is a roller, and the one on the left there is kind of a spreader, I guess. It puts a very even layer of mud on the wall. They are amazing and huge time saver. This job alone, I probably saved 2 or 3, 4 hours. Well, maybe 2 or 3, but they're huge. They're fairly expensive. You can buy them in a kit with everything for a couple $1,000, but just these tools alone, if you were to purchase, probably would be close to $1,000. See, I'm spending a lot of time in that corner there. That's what I was talking about. You really want all those corners to look just beautiful. It's huge eye candy for the customer, and you're gonna have to do it anyway, but make them look really good. This job was a 3-way window, meaning they're going to put a wood window sill on the bottom. And when you get that confirmed with the customer, you just don't have to put a bead at the bottom, because it's just easier to put the window sill in without a bead. So I'm just going to do both sides and the top square bead. And then on the left there near that hole, I'm going to do another square bead. It is 2019 when I did this. Square bead is really, really popular right now. The bullnose, the round look is kind of like a 10-year-old look. But right now, square bead is just extremely popular. I like to use yellow meshed tape to tape my bead. I always tape bead. Don't be that jerk that doesn't tape his bead. But I like to use yellow just because I can see it. I am now moving on with my flat box mud. This again is a specialty tool. It just helps spread the mud evenly. You could do this by hand. The whole kit I bought, I think it was maybe $2,000 for all these boxes, the pump there, that red thing with the lever on it. Anyway, I would definitely recommend buying these tools, because all together with every tool I've had here, I definitely saved more than 4 hours of time just on this single job alone. As you can see, I just kind of push that thing on the wall, and it creates a perfectly thin line. There's settings on that box that you can have a thicker or thinner line, depending on your needs, but just so valuable. I would definitely recommend it if you do this for work. All bead needs at least 3 layers of mud, if not more. The point is you keep going until it's flat. Generally speaking, for me, I can get 3 layers, but I've done 4, I've done 5 layers. You just keep going until that is flat. You put your knife up to it on one corner of the bead and then to the rest of the wall, and you see if there's any fill. I describe this in all my videos, but fill is what you're trying to get rid of. There, I went to Subway for lunch today and had this. They have this specialty tea out right now, and it is amazing. I would definitely recommend going to Subway and just trying this tea. I don't really enjoy promoting going out to eat. I just didn't have anything, but oh man, was that lemonade or tea, whatever it was so good. Go check it out. Moving on with my next second coat. I'd love to hear from you guys. Comment below about a question you have specifically, or even if it's not even about drywall, just a different way to make money. I do a lot of things to make a lot of money in different ways. And if you guys have any questions about an idea you have, I'd love to help it. So here I am working my second layer on the bead. I also did my butt joint up there with my flat box. There's one small advantage, I guess, to stand these sheets upright, but recessed joints, if you set your mudding boxes, the setting just right, you can get away with 2 finishing coats of mud and then texture on top of that. Generally, butt joints need 3 or 4 fills, so one advantage of the wall, I had to do 1 less layer of mud to have it texture ready. I would love your guys' support with by hitting like, hitting subscribe, sharing this with your friends. This channel is very small right now. I only have about 130 subscribers, but I would like to get more. And the way that we do that is the more interaction you guys have with the video, whether it's likes or comments or shares or subscriptions or something, the YouTube sees this interaction and says, oh, this video might be a good video. So that's how we get out there. That's how you kind of break free of being a small channel. So I'd love your support. This is the second finishing coat on the wall here. See that little bit of a wiggle? So that's a fill. See the light? See the light there? Okay, so that's a fill. We need to get rid of that light so it's a perfectly flat wall. That area was pretty good. That needs a tiny, tiny bit. Okay, so these are the fills. You keep going till it's flat. Their sanding will bring that to flat. So I'm going to add an additional layer to this weird butt joint, and that will bring that wall to flat. On that slowed down section we just looked at, it was very messy and ugly looking. Now I did that on purpose because I put mud only on the two sides of that tape joint, because the tape is the high point of a butt joint. So you don't want to add any more mud to the high point than you have to add. So that way I keep all mud off of that, and then I do my final finishing coat in the middle to finally cover that tape and the divot that you saw, if you remember where that light was. This is my third fill on the bead. This brought it to flat, so I didn't need to do any additional. So the next step, I will start texture. The main purpose of all my videos is to show you how to make a ton of extra money. I make $180,000 to $200,000 a year, and I've done this for many years. It's not just a one-year fluke. Doing drywall and all these ideas I talk about. I do a majority of my money with drywall, so that's why a majority of my videos are about drywall. But I talk about a lot of other ideas on how to make money, how to save money, or how to budget properly. We are now starting our texture on the walls. This texture is wholly smooth. Most of all my videos are wholly smooth. It is extremely popular out here in Utah. And honestly, it is a fantastic look. It's a very smooth wall with every so often you kind of get these holes or bumps. To do wholly smooth, I have other videos that slow it down even more and talk about it in depth. But you basically put a small blob on the tip of your knife as you scoop it out of the pan, and you wipe it across the wall fairly quickly. So it kind of skips on the wall a little bit because you're wiping it quickly. And then you softly wipe it to get the effect that you're after. The more holes is kind of really bumpy wall would be like a Santa Fe look. So it's the exact same style, you just wipe even less hard, I guess. But anyway, wholly smooth is very smooth, and just kind of keep rewatching this texture part if you have any questions about it, or even my other videos that go over it in detail. Whenever I start a fresh wall, I always start with all the corners, the top there, and then the sides. I kind of put a little bit of a small blob, so there's some material up there to work with. And then I work into the skippy in the middle, right? That skip technique I was telling you about. And then I just kind of softly wipe everything. I always start from top down. I'm sure you could do the other way around and not have it affect anything. When you go around outlets, you'll see here in just a second, but you do all 4 corners of that outlet so you have mud everywhere on it, because you don't want the wall to be uneven where your plate goes on the outlet. I hope me describing on how to do this texture makes sense. Please comment if it doesn't and ask, a specific question. Honestly, I do this so many times, I could make a specific video on your question on how to do this texture or really any style of texture. So the ceiling, you have to prep the ceiling with this style of texture that I'm using. It's a standard knockdown because we want everything perfectly flat because you can see through it. So you want to sand it, you put your knife up to it and check the fill, make sure there's no additional fill needs, and all the ridges are gone. Here we're starting the texture. You have 2 hawks. Depending on the style of texture that you want is how much mud you put on the hawks, but you basically squish them together to make these kind of peaks, and then you wipe it off. How long you let it sit on the wall before you wipe it gives a different style look, or how much water you put in the mud before you put it up on there also gives a little bit different look. This here, I chose a little bit stickier mud, so less water, and a thin layer of mud on each hawk, so it was a smaller texture compared to others I've done in other videos. Isn't that super cool looking? I like to watch it as I wipe it, because it's just, to me, I think that's really cool looking. When you're doing this texture, I only do 1 coat on my screws, and I do that with this texture because after I wipe it, I kind of look everywhere to see if there's any screw heads that are kind of noticeable because there's only 1 layer of mud on it. And then I put a little blob up there and then re-wipe it so that screw head is covered by the texture. I don't need to waste my time by covering these screw heads 3 or 4 times. Because I'm a business and the whole reason for my existence is to make money. And I want to make a ton of money. So every step I can do that isn't shortcutting but is just a better way, I'm going to do it so I can make more money. Here I'm just sanding the corners to kind of prep that for the ceiling sand. And now I use my power sander and I sand every inch of the wall. This is going to take any weird lines out and just smooth everything out. This power sander, that whole kit together was probably $1,100. You could do this by hand, it would just take you forever, but you could. I moved on to the other patches to finish them, which I'll show you shortly. So this dried for maybe an hour, maybe 45 minutes. I had a ton of fans on it, so it's still extremely wet. Wet sanding is very difficult to do. If you aren't confident or feel that, it's okay if I repair that, don't do it because you can mess it up very bad, and to fix it is hard but not undoable. So if you're new at this, just let it dry and sand it the next day. So this is the finished product. I'm 100% sanded and done. I just need to kind of clean up, sweep the floors, and we're done. This job, again, paid $780. It was this room and where I'm about to show you, but pretty cool. That was about $70 an hour for this, about 10 hours worth of work. You can do it too. Get out there and make yourself some money. We had this repair, and then we had a few small repairs in the closet. Hit subscribe. I've said it a few times. Just hit it.